Hi, this is Greg Herder, and I'd like to welcome you to my monthly coaching webinar. Remember, I do these webinars each and every month for all the seminar graduates from the Marketing Mastery Program, and the goal is to keep you moving forward to make sure you're using what you learned at the Marketing Mastery Seminar. We spent 3 days together. We covered a lot of information, but unless you take that information and use it consistently, it won't pay off. And a year from now, I want you to be so much of a better marketer than you are now. I want to see the income, the results coming in. So I really want to make sure you're using what you learned. I also want to make sure that you don't feel isolated. So many times people get back to their office and they say, well, I start talking about what I'm doing at the seminar, and they say, well, I don't know if that'll really work here. And they feel like they're the only person really working to build a marketing-driven real estate business. And I want you to know you're not, and we are here to help you and support you in doing exactly that. I also want to make sure that you are holding yourself accountable for accomplishing your goals. Remember the board-breaking exercise that we did that very first night at the seminar. You put your goals, your vision, and I want to make sure that you are holding yourself accountable to making that happen. I also want to share with you some new ideas that can add into what we talked about at the seminar that can make a difference in getting you to really accomplish your goals in the year ahead. This month, my book of the month is Nonviolent Communication. This is by far the best communication book I have ever read. I guarantee you it will improve every relationship you have personally, professionally. Now, I think it's just so important. This is a book that will really improve your ability to understand how you talk to yourself. And I think it's the perfect book for today's webinar, because today's webinar is about successful communication. At the Marketing Mastery Seminar, we talked about the importance of having a successful, targeted, focused niche marketplace that you can go after and really build your strategic brand advantage on that, and then communicating that through all of your marketing activities. Today, I want to talk about not marketing communication, but your communication of what you're doing one-on-one. And I found that when you're talking to people face-to-face, being able to articulate your marketing message is very important. The reality is that we are all communicating all the time. You cannot not communicate. The more effective you are at communication, the more effective you will be as a realtor, a parent, spouse, friend, peer, even as a leader. Remember that you are always communicating with yourself. The stories we tell ourselves determine whether we are happy or sad, whether we feel like we are succeeding or failing. Once we really understand this, you will work very hard to improve your communication with yourself. You will stop using negative self-talk. Remember that words have incredible power. With carefully crafted words, you can touch people's lives. You can help the blind see with the power of your words. You can also help people have insight of them into themselves, their relationships, their motivations. This is truly an amazing power. Through the power of communication, you can change everything around you. Through words, you can help your clients see themselves living in their new home. You can help your kids see themselves happy and successful. You can help your life partner feel your love through what you say. Communication, in many ways, is like a lamp for your feet, so you know where you're to walk. If you're an effective communicator, you will get more out of every aspect of your life. As a salesperson, you have to become a great storyteller. Think about one of the most powerful, persuasive sales presentations you have ever made. The sales presentation you made, convincing somebody to marry you. What a story you told. As a salesperson today, You need to have the stories that will make people want to buy what you're selling, stories that will help you overcome objections, and the stories that will help you close each and every sale that you're part of. As a parent, you need to have some stories that will sell your kids on doing their homework. I had the great pleasure of working for Jim Rohn for a couple of years, and he was such a great storyteller. Jim would go on vacation and come back and tell us about diving in the crystal clear waters. When he talked, I swear you could feel the water splashing on your skin, the breeze rustling in your hair, the smell of the sweet aroma of the foods he described eating. It was almost as good as going on vacation yourself. Tony Robbins says the only way to determine if your communication stories are effective is by asking if they've created the results you intended. He said if you do not get the results you intended, then you need to improve your communication skills. He suggests that you have to do whatever you can. Be willing to say things in a different way, change your tone, change your approach. In short, you have to be willing to change everything about what you do, what you're saying, how you're saying it, until you get the results you want. And it's when you get the results you want that you know you're communicating effectively. And if you blame the other person, I guarantee you are not communicating effectively. What I have learned is that effective communication is not just the words you say. It's the person you are. That's why two people can say exactly the same words, but get totally different results. When I started my real estate career, I didn't understand this, and it caused me a great deal of pain. I memorized some of Tommy Hopkins and Floyd Wickman's scripts. When I first tried to say them, they felt so unnatural. But everyone told me, Greg, you've got to master them, keep memorizing, keep working on them. I worked on them with a number of other agents, and we mastered them, we memorized them, could say them back and forth to each other, and then we started using them. And what I realized is the agents who had a totally outgoing personality, just like Tommy Hopkins or Floyd, got the best results from the scripts. For me, they always made me feel sick inside. Even when I said them, got them right, the way they came out of me, it never produced the same result. And to this day, this is why I hate scripts. I have found that for me, and other people that are a little bit shyer, more introverted, like me, it is better to try and figure out the gist of the information behind a script and then figure out how to change it to fit my personality. I firmly believe that the reason our personal brochures and marketing materials are so effective is that we try and capture the essence of each agent. We don't try and make them fit into a template that forces them into being something they're not. Now, this is all part of who you are. And so the first area of communication is to really work on becoming more. If you read, take information, observe, watch communication, you will grow. And the first area of communication I really want you to work on is your own internal communication, how you communicate with yourself. You have to treat yourself like your most important client. Stop putting yourself down. Stop judging yourself. Since the number one person you are communicating with is yourself, start by making sure you talk to yourself in a positive way that will inspire you to be the best that you can be. I have found the way we communicate with ourselves becomes the default for the way we communicate with the people that are truly important to us, our spouse, our kids, other people that we're really close to. If you improve the way you communicate with yourself, it will improve your relationships with everyone you are close to. Today, I want to share with you 4 steps to effective communication. First, you have to have something good to say. If you are going to say something, you might as well make it worthwhile. You cannot talk about things that you do not know. The reason that you want to study communication is so that you will have the verbal checks that you can turn into cash. The only way to make sure your verbal checks cash is to make the deposits ahead of time, listening, reading, paying attention to the impacts of your words. Notice how others' words impact you. Then practice how to respond, especially in challenging communication situations. Otherwise, our default anger, frustration, disappointment will come out, and we won't communicate the way we want to. We call this preparation. You have all heard that knowledge is power. What I've learned is that knowledge is transformed into power only when you know how to communicate it effectively. That means you can say things in the right tone, at the right time, so that it moves people to action. If you really want to have something good to say, you have to prepare, you have to study. Rarely does a good idea interrupt you. And this is truly a lifetime opportunity. Keep a journal to capture the good ideas that come your way. When you go to a sermon, write down the things that moved you. When you hear something, whether it's a commercial on TV, a television program, a movie, write down things and think, gosh, how do they do that communication? If you think about it, think about the significant events in your life. Practice communicating, how they touched you, how they changed you. Now, I know this sounds a little strange. Sometimes it's hard. But unless you make the effort, you will not be able to reach for the right words at the right time. And then you'll make costly errors in communication. I see so much of this. I see people saying things that they really don't mean. They'll say, honey, what's wrong with you? When what they really meant to say is, honey, what's bothering you? See, that's too big of an error. It will cost you in a big way. Instead of making a person feel that you are concerned for them, you are there for them. You make them feel judged. And they will instantly feel that you're blaming them for whatever is going on. And even though you came from a place of concern, your communication is misunderstood. Let me ask you this. Do you find yourself saying on a fairly regular basis, oh, that's not what I mean? If you do, then I guarantee you, you need to improve your communication. And I need you to do it quickly. If you're over 25 years old and you're still making some of these little mistakes in communication, you need to develop a little bit stronger sense of urgency, because this is your life. How we communicate to ourselves internally is how we determine our entire life. When a baby wildebeest is born in Africa, it has about an hour to learn how to run with a herd. The first time it tries to walk and falls down on shaky legs, its mother nudges it in an effort to communicate, get up, get up. Everybody says, well, why the urgency? Well, it's called the lions. If a lion comes and the herd takes off, and the baby cannot run in the safety of the herd, it's over. Now, we as humans take a little longer to figure it all out, but we can't let it take too long. Think back as a teenager. It was so easy to get tripped up by all the words of our peers. What we thought was so important back then. Today we look back and we understand, gosh, it's insignificant. We can't even imagine how we let their words impact us, cause us pain. The more we prepare, the more we study about communication, the more confidence we have, the more powerful our words become. And when you are fully prepared, you can persuade with ease. Today, I'm shocked at how many salespeople come up to me and ask things like, what do you say when somebody who wants to cut your commission or wants too much for their home? Then, as you talk to them, you realize they've asked this question over and over again to their manager, 12 other agents, 5 other trainers. But what they don't do is ask themselves at a deep level, am I worth my commission? What value do I provide? So that now, when they're asked, will you cut your commission? They can speak with conviction about their value. They know internally what they are worth. Their value as a realtor at a very deep level. Now, I've studied economics. I love studying, trying to figure out what is the value proposition. And I've done this work. I've thought about what value I provide at seminars as a realtor. And I believe with every fiber of my body that I provide more value than what I charge at everything I do. So even if I give you my script for how to deal with somebody who asks me to cut my commission, cut my fee, it won't work for you unless you've gone through the same introspection. Instead, if you don't have the same belief system. Now, you've got to do that work, and then you have to practice saying the things that are difficult to say, that may feel uncomfortable. And here's the key. You have to practice with conviction and intensity. And I found this is very lacking in most agents at how they practice. They get a script, and they memorize it, but they say it without conviction. They don't actually go through the motions. And then they play with another realtor who can't help but being an incredibly difficult, challenging client. And it doesn't do them any good. I still remember when I conducted my first seminar. I stood up and my mind sat back down. I guarantee if I was not doing the seminar, I know I would have walked out. My palms were sweating, my knees were knocking together. It's known as terror. Now, after that first seminar, I decided I needed to work a lot harder at preparation so that I would have never had to experience that much terror, that much fear, stress again. Now, when you practice, whether it's a close, a listing presentation, talking with your kids, having a serious conversation with your spouse, I want you to role play. And here's the key, you've got to role play with intensity. Here's why practice does not make perfect. We've all heard this saying, practice makes perfect. It doesn't. Practice makes permanent. And if you practice poorly, you'll do a poor job in the real world. So if you don't practice just as seriously as the real performance, your performance will always be lacking. Jim Rohn told me the reason most people do not communicate effectively is they are just good enough at communicating to get by without taking practice seriously. But at the end of each day, think about the day. Take a few minutes and jot down the things that touched you, that you communicated well, that you didn't do so well. This is how you learn to get from the day, not just through the day. So many agents are just focused on getting through the day. Make sure you're one of those who are learning from every day's experience. It will make a huge difference in your ability to communicate and persuade over time. If you'll do this consistently for just 3 or 4 months, you cannot believe the impact it will have. Jim said, Greg, learn to take everything in. Look at your life. Thoreau said an unexamined life was not worth living. Now, I'm not sure that's true. I don't know if I'd take it that far. But what I found is when you examine the things in your life, you get so much more value. That's why you have to go to all the seminars, listen to all the sermons, take the notes when you're reading a book. Not just notes on the content, but on our speaker skills. Did he hold the crowd? The next time you run across a great salesperson, take notes, even if you're buying from them. A few years ago, my wife and I were in Nordstrom's, and my wife was looking for a pair of shoes. And this extraordinary saleswoman started to help her. She started asking questions, got Janet talking, got us involved. And by the time my wife left, she had 4 pairs of shoes. Later, I found out that this extraordinary salesperson was Nordstrom's #1 shoe salesperson in the entire country. And as I was in the middle of watching this, I started looking at some of the things she was doing, and I thought, gosh. And as soon as I got out to the car, I started taking notes. That's why you want to have a journal with you everywhere. I wish I would have had my journal with me as I was watching this extraordinary salesperson work. We don't want to miss out on the opportunities to learn, to grow. So the first key to being a great communicator is to have something great to say. The second key to being a great communicator is treating others with respect. Learn to always treat every person that you're talking with as an equal. You never want to talk down to people. The second you start talking down to someone, communication comes to an incredible stop. This is true as a parent, a leader, a salesperson. You've all heard the old phrase, you must learn to walk in someone else's shoes. The question is, are you practicing this on a regular basis? The next time your spouse is a little upset with you, think, what a great opportunity to see if I can walk in their shoes. Say, I can imagine that you must be what you are feeling right now. Am I close? Here's what I think you're feeling, what you're thinking. I really want to understand how you feel. Now, as soon as you can get into their shoes and they can see that you're trying to understand them, it will change the tone of the communication so dramatically. I know it can be hard, but if you do it, the payoff and your ability to communicate, to connect, to persuade, to influence will be so much more powerful. Now, when you're getting in somebody else's shoes, don't confuse empathy for sympathy. Empathy is giving your full attention and presence to another human being. You are focusing 100% of your attention on them. Sympathy is feeling sorry for another person, feeling their feelings or feeling their emotions. And the difference is huge. In fact, if you use empathetic words without giving your full attention to the person you're talking with, it won't work. In fact, it will often make it worse because the person feels that you aren't really with them. You're just going through the motions. Now, I really want you to ask yourself, the next time your spouse says, you aren't really listening to me. Ask yourself, were you really listening or were you thinking about what you were saying? See, I want you to be fully present to communicate effectively. Then you must learn to understand the full range of human emotions and master your own emotions in the face of others' emotions. So that instead of meeting anger with anger, you can now take a step back and have a chance to truly influence others and help them through very difficult situations. This is called the art of diplomacy. It's one of the most incredible skills to develop. When somebody can be coming at you with anger, frustration, disappointment, and you have the skills, the communication, the ability to not get ego defending, to walk into their shoes and have the ability to tactfully work with them to resolve the issue. Diplomacy is so critical in so many different ways as a salesperson. It's also incredibly powerful as a parent. You'll be so much more effective with your kids when you learn how to be a diplomat with them than yelling, lecturing, giving them sarcastic comments. Great leaders, great communicators have learned that they also get much better results when they never tell anyone else what to do. Whenever you tell someone else to do, you almost instantly start an autonomy war. No one, from a little kid to an adult, likes being told what to do. When someone orders us around, it threatens our autonomy. And autonomy is one of those core needs that is deep within us all. We all want to be able to determine our own outcome. As a leader, as a salesperson, a parent, learn to never tell anyone what to do. Instead, learn to tell people what you are going to do in a way that acknowledges their value and allows them to make choices for themselves. If you are tired of telling your kids to take out the trash, and you tell them over and over again, then finally raising your voice in anger, yelling, "Johnny, take out the trash right this instant," and then feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm yelling at my kids, I'm being exactly what I hated my parents. Instead, learn to tell your child what you're going to do. Say, "Johnny, I don't like bugging you to take out the trash. And I sense that you don't like me bugging you about it either. So from here on out, whenever I find the trash is full, I will just take it out. Since our agreement was that you would empty the trash whenever it needed it, along with a few other chores in exchange for your $20 of weekly allowance, I want you to know I'll only charge you $3 every time I have to take out the trash for you. At my job, I don't get paid if I don't do my work, and I want to treat you like an adult, so if you don't want to do the work, I won't pay you for it, just like it works in the real world. So the choice is yours. You can take out the trash without me bugging you, or you can pay me to take it out for you. You're mature enough to decide what is best for you." Now, we've treated our child like they can make decisions. We've instilled in confidence in them that they can make decisions, and now they're focused on, do I want the $3? Do I not want the $3? Not you bugging them. And I want you to realize you will have so much more impact. Now, if Johnny does not take out the trash, make sure you deduct the $3 from allowance. Don't cave. Print up a little invoice. Took out the trash for Johnny, $3. Picked up 5 pieces of Johnny's clothes left on the living room floor, $1 per item, for a total of $5. Allowance, $20, minus $3 for trash, minus $5 for clothes pickup. Here's $12. And now you can make your point. This will have such a huge impact if you will do this. Now, at first, your child may yell and scream that you are not being fair, that they are going to test you. But it is much better than yelling and screaming and then feeling like you're a mean parent. You're also teaching them real responsibility. In the long run, they will respect you so much more, and you will have a so much better relationship with your kids. Now, this is true of your employees, your coworkers, other realtors. If you will focus on telling people what you're going to do, stop telling them what they have to do, it makes such a huge difference. Now, it takes a little longer to think it through up front, but it will pay huge dividends in the long run. So I want you to start searching for something good to say. Then treating people with respect, and you'll always find a way to solve almost every problem. So step 1 is having something good to say. Step 2 is treat others with respect. And step 3 is to make sure you always say it, whether it's easy or not easy. You just got to get it done. This makes such a huge difference. We have all heard that saying words are no substitute for action. But I've also found that action is no substitute for words. See, you can send roses, and the roses speak, but I found that roses have a limited vocabulary. They say, "I remembered you," that I was thinking about you. But only the words, only the note with the roses can say, "There is nobody on the planet that makes me feel like you do. I am so grateful for the way you enrich my life. I am grateful for your presence and your love." See, the words have no substitute. You can't let the flowers do all the talking. Don't fail to say the important things that need to be said. Now, sometimes you've got to deal with the difficult things. You have to tell your friend that their listing is overpriced, even when you know they don't want to hear it, even when you know when they desperately need the money. Because if you fail to say, it will eat it at you. It'll eat at your self-worth. It's more important for you to make sure you say the difficult things than it is for the people that hear it. So this is absolutely critical. If it's easy, say it easy. If it's hard, say it hard. But get it said. There's an outstanding book called Fierce Conversations. And you've got to be willing to put yourself out there, to risk the emotional kickback. Otherwise, you're not willing to go out there and communicate. You've got to be willing to close when you know it's time, to step up. And sometimes it's not always easy, but practice. And if you work on the first two elements, this will make it so much easier and better. Now, the fourth thing that will make you a great communicator is to make sure you're reading the signals. Whether you're talking to one person, a group of people, a group of 1,000, you have to constantly be reading the signals to make sure your message is getting across. There are three things you must always be reading. First is what you see. Make sure you're looking at your kids. If they seem bored, then gosh, change your communication. Don't say, well, don't be bored. I want you to realize it. It is better to stop talking and think about how you can communicate more effectively than to yell at them. Jim Rohn said, Greg, there is no such thing as a bored employee. There are only boring bosses. And I have found that is so true. Now it's hard. There are no boring kids or kids that are bored. It's parents that don't communicate effectively. If a client starts looking at you uncomfortably, pay attention. Pay attention to what you see, and then be willing to change. Say, I need to do something different. Don't just keep going. Next, pay attention to what you hear. And I will tell you, this is hard, but you have got to become a good listener. Listening is hard, but it is so powerful. When you give somebody your undivided attention, it is so powerful. And if you will listen without judgment, and then pause, think about what you're going to say, you will respond so much more effectively. The last thing you've got to pay attention to is what you are feeling. The key is to feel your emotions and think, is this an appropriate emotion? And especially the subtle emotions that you're feeling about what's going on with your clients, your kids, your spouse. I want you to be aware of them so that you can manage them effectively, so they don't explode on you. If you aren't paying attention to those subtle feelings when they're small, they will explode on you and they will make you do things that you regret. Pay attention to the intensity of your emotions. Here's the key. You must learn how to have the right amount of emotion for the occasion. Some kids really do have a point that their parents make a mountain out of a molehill. Make sure that you don't, and don't try and put out a match with a fire hose. You've got to monitor the intensity of your emotions. If it's a big deal, make a big deal out of it. But if it's not a big deal, don't make a big deal out of it. Remember that words are like a little straight pin. If I took a straight pin and I threw it at you, and it hit your hand, your skin, it would prick you, but it'd bounce right off. But if I took that straight pin, wired it to the top of an iron bar, now I could drive that pin through your heart. Words are like a pin. Emotions are like the iron bar. You must learn to use measured emotions. You don't want to go hunting for a rabbit with a cannon. Now it's effective. You'll get the rabbit. But when you're done, you have no more rabbit. So let's apply this to you as a salesperson. Let's talk about the things that we've been talking about here today and go to work on your communication skills. Now, when it comes time to sell, use your communication skills first so that your prospect can identify with you. This is basic rapport building, and there's been a lot of books, a lot of information written on rapport building. Whether you use NLP, so many different options out there for rapport building. So I don't want to go into a lot of it here. Once you have rapport, remember that people buy emotionally. Your first goal is to build that emotional connection, build rapport. And now, when you're going through the facts of your sales presentation, what you have to learn how to do is give your clients just enough facts to justify a logical, you want to give them just enough facts to justify an emotional decision. See, we probably go home, tell our spouse the reason I bought this brand new Mercedes was the incredible safety that they put in here, all the airbags for our family, for our kids. And because our clients judge us by the car we drive as real estate agents. Now, all of that might be true, but we leave out telling our spouse, honey, look, the reason I bought this car is I just look good in it. I feel more successful just driving around. I mean, I saw myself in the plate glass windows at the dealership, and I looked good. See, we bought it because it was an emotional feeling. But if other people ask us why we bought it, we justify it rationally and logically. And that's so important to remember. That's true of all of us. When you are closing, remember to start by giving people easy reasons to buy first. And then, if that doesn't work, get stronger and stronger. And I have found that if you've built rapport, you're communicating, and you come from a sincere place of being totally open and honest with yourself, you can get incredibly strong. But start with the easy stuff. As that doesn't work, go to the tools of last resort. Let me tell you what I think of your current procrastination. Here's what it's costing you. But you don't want to do that right up front. You want to start with the easy reasons. I remember a few years after we started Hobbs Advertising, one top producing agent came up to me and said, Greg, why should I attend your seminar? I've been in real estate X number of years, longer than you ever sold real estate. And I said, well, the reason you ought to come is just because you can afford it. And you'll have lots of fun having other agents just come up to you, listen to everything you're saying. And he bought. Now, if somebody came up and said, well, Greg, I know I can afford it, but why should I really go? What do I learn? And now I'm willing to go deeper. Well, because you're going to get better at marketing. And if I have to, pull out the big guns and say, listen, because your marketing sucks, because your life will be better. But start with the easy reasons. And that makes all the difference in the world. Now, I hope you found this valuable. I'd love to take your questions and comments about what we've covered here today. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time here today, so what I'm going to ask you to do is this. Give me your feedback, post me an email, and I will happily answer your question. If you send me an email to greg.herder@hobbsherder.com, go to my Facebook page, type in a question. I promise as soon as I have an opportunity, I will get back to you with your questions. I would also love your feedback about this webinar today. Was it valuable? Was it useful? And how are you planning on using it? And then make sure you go to HH Calls, register for next month's coaching call. I try and make sure that every month we're moving in a right direction so that your productivity is going up. Thank you very much for investing your